Okay, we are ready to add some more settings to our settings menu in our Fretboard application here. Let's add a selector where you can select how many frets you want on your fretboard. And if we go back to our app.js file, up here we have number of frets. We want that to be dynamic. So the first thing I can do is I can just change it from being a constant to using the let keyword. In that way we can change it later on. I'm gonna save that, and then we of course need in the index HTML to actually add an input here. So after the accidental selector, we want to have a number. Let's make a label first, and let's call it number of frets. Right, and I'm gonna call that number of frets inside of it here. Good. And then we can add the input. We want that to be type number, right? Because we want it to be a number so we can step up and down, and yeah, you'll see that later. So ID, we're gonna give it an ID of number of frets. Okay. And then I don't want the user to make like a 1 or 2 fretboard. I also don't want them to be able to like make a 300 fretboard, because that's gonna be weird. You're not gonna use that. That's outside the scope of this. So I'm gonna set a minimum attribute here, so the user can only select a minimum of 5 frets. And I'm gonna set a maximum with the max attribute of, let's say, 30 frets. You're probably not gonna need more than 30 frets. And then I'm gonna give it like a standard default value of 20. So I'm gonna set a value to 20. So it's gonna show 20 frets from the beginning. And actually, let me in my app.js go here and change that to 20. Okay, something like that. So now we have it set up here. Now we need to do something when you change a number. And to do that, we need to set up an event listener. So back in our app.js, in our event listeners, so here we can add an event listener to something that we haven't grabbed yet. So let me remember to do that first. We have this one here. It has an ID of number of frets. So let me grab that. Go back to the app.js, and right here at the top, we're going to do the same. We're going to make a constant with the element. What should we call it? Number of frets is a good word for it. But we're already using that, so let's call it number of frets selector. Right? And document query selector as an ID of number of frets. So now that should be okay. So back down in our set up event listeners method here, we can set up an event listener on it. So it was called number of frets selector, this one. Let's add event listener, and we want to add a change event, because every time it changes value, it should do something. What should it do? We'll find out in a moment. Here we go with the callback function. And so every time you change something in this one here, really simple, we're just gonna set number of frets to the value of the number of frets selector. So number of frets selector, and then value. Nothing's gonna happen right now because every time we want to set up the fretboard again. So this setup fretboard like that. All right, let's see if it works. It looks like it works. Let me just make it bigger here. Let's say we want 12 frets. I can type it in my keyboard, or I can just press the buttons up and down here. You don't get those buttons in all. And then when we hit 30 frets, it's not going to be able to make more frets because we set that maximum attribute on it. When we go all the way down to 5, it's not going to be able to go further down than that. So that was pretty easy. Yeah, another short video here, but let's just style it up a little bit because it looks kind of ugly, I think. Let's Let's go back to our style sheet and do something about this ugly stuff. I'm not gonna make it totally beautiful right now. I'm just gonna space it out a bit. So we have the accidental selector. We already spaced that out a little bit. Actually, I wanna when I don't see this one, when this one is not selected in the Chrome browser, I would like to display these arrow buttons. I don't know if you can see it. Let me zoom in a bit. So there are some arrow buttons in this one here. Go back to 100%. And the way to do that for Chrome is to set the opacity to 1. I'm just gonna paste it in right here, and you can see what I pasted in is this. So you get the input of type number, and we just set the WebKit inner spin button and outer spin button to opacity 1. So when I save this, you should see that you're always able to see this one. Maybe that's a bit more user-friendly, I don't know. That's what we're gonna do. And I am just gonna take the label, just push it over a little bit. Just put it margin right. Let's just give it 10 pixels. So that's spaced out a little bit more. It's not beautiful, but it's a little bit better. In the next video, we are going to make a checkbox here next to the number of frets input. And when we click that checkbox, we want to be able to see all of the notes at the same time on the fretboard. And when we uncheck it, we want it to disappear again. So that's what we're going to do in the next episode. See you there.